Folks, welcome to Awaken Voices Issue 10 Intention for Change launch. We are so excited to publish this issue and for you all to spend this evening celebrating our writers with us. My name is Jerry. I am the creative director here at Awakenings, and that includes overseeing the editing team. Before we dive in tonight, here are some house rules. First, we are recording. Attendees' audio and video will not be recorded, but Awakening staff and writers' video and audio will be recorded. Everyone's chat messages will be recorded. Second, technology is hard. If you experience problems and need to sign back in, the personalized sign-on link you received from Zoom will still work for you to rejoin us. We will be muting and unmuting our speakers, but attendees will have their mics and cameras off the whole time. We have the chat function turned on. You can open the chat by clicking chat at the bottom of your screen. We would love for you to respond with any clapping, words of encouragement, or congratulations by using the chat box. Please, only positive messages. You can select if your message will be visible by attendees and writers or by only the writers and Awakenings staff. If a writer has a technological issue, or if those of us hosting have a technological issue, please bear with us. If we were in the gallery right now, I would point out the direction of our breathe room in case anyone wanted a place to decompress alone with an advocate. For tonight, we have a phone number you can call to reach out to tonight's advocate, McKenna. We will place this number in the chat box now. This is a Google Voice number. You are welcome to call McKenna at any point during tonight's event. And if it makes you more comfortable, you can block your phone number by dialing *67 before you dial, and you do not have to give your real name if you do not want to. This number will no longer be in use after tonight's event. If you call and McKenna is already speaking to someone else, please wait a few minutes and call back, or consider calling the crisis line. That number is being put in the chat now. Finally, on the house rules front, this magazine launch is very special in a lot of ways. We do want to acknowledge we will be talking about sexual violence tonight, and that includes different ways people define this term, and the ways in which people choose to identify might not fit with how you choose to identify. We all participate in making a space a brave space of listening, of speaking, and certainly we hope of celebrating being together across distances tonight. Please be part of this brave space, which for us at Awakenings includes doing this over a virtual platform and live. With all the house rules set for tonight, let's dive in. Tonight, you will hear from writers who are published in the main section of issue 10. These writers found us through our submission call over the winter. We hope you will join us again in July for a night that features the special section of this issue, which was curated by our friends at Can Win. Now, to start things off is one of our editors. Please add some lovely reactions in the chat box, which again serves as our clapping or snaps for tonight, and help me welcome Gillian Marwood.
Much like the theme of this issue, Awakenings came to me at a time of change. I was just about to graduate from college after studying creative writing, and my high school dream of becoming a famous poet didn't feel like the future I wanted anymore. In the last few weeks of class, when applying for jobs and internships, nothing seemed to align with what I wanted, and I felt the dread of my degree. But someone brought up Awakenings and everything fell into place. I'd worked with a college poetry literary magazine, but this was different. It wasn't just about the perfect poem, it was about the story and person behind it. It was about the community and support and care that went into every choice made at Awakenings. The funny thing is, when I told my class that that's where I'd be interning, no one even remembered suggesting it. I think that Intention for Change has done more than just string all of this issue's pieces together. It's brought a bigger message to the ways we deal with sexual violence and trauma as a whole. After reading each submission, it's shown me just how differently we heal, the tactics we use. It's about acknowledging that there is not usually an endpoint, and that some days we will hurt just as much as day one. This issue isn't just about the end goal, it's about making the first step. On a bigger, less personal level, this theme has brewed together a protest to the system, It highlights the ways we need to change as a larger group and as a larger group of people beyond survivors and supporters. What is wrong with the language we use, the judicial system, the questions we ask to our friends? It will remind you of the injustices that we need to keep on fighting. One of my favorite poems in the magazine is a piece by Abigail Swoboda called Grocery Store Tenderness. I love it because it captures the way trauma affects our everyday tasks. Healing is not just going over the event in your head or the dreams or the seeking of justice. It's telling yourself that today I will go to the grocery store, or I will do my laundry, or make dinner, or do everything you did before, but being okay with knowing that it'll be different. Then there is Barista by Max Rampus, that jumps back and forth between a coffee shop and the retelling of a childhood memory. The writer creates a disjointed and overwhelming feeling as the story restarts in every new stanza. I find it truly inspiring that these writers are able to encapsulate their experiences and emotions through such unique craft elements. But other poems aren't stories at all, but short and sweet affirmations like Flamekeeper by Amanda Held or Survivor by Desiree M. They're the poems you keep taped to your bathroom mirror or placed on your bedside table. They're things we all need to remind ourselves of more often. Awakenings has taught me many things, career-wise, community-wise, and then some. But I really love what I've learned about language. When working around the topic of trauma, you need to be aware of the words you put forth and understanding that the different things you say will have an emotional response. I admire how much care and gentleness goes into the way the organization communicates, especially to the contributors. The people that choose to submit to the magazine or gallery aren't just looking for new ways to be published. I feel that the artists and writers truly care about the mission at Awakenings, and it takes a lot of courage to trust our team with your stories. I am incredibly grateful that so many of you have come out to our virtual launch tonight. None of us expected that Zoom calls would take up so much of our lives these days, from editorial meetings to classes to family gatherings. But I know that people that support Awakenings will continue to do so despite the unfortunate circumstances affecting us all. And it's amazing to have people from here as well as outside of Chicago, particularly the writers and Awakenings teammates that wouldn't have been able to do so, to join otherwise. So from whatever time zone you're in, thank you for coming to our virtual launch, and I hope you enjoy your evening and read the magazine with as much care as we put into it. I'm very excited to introduce our first reader, so please snap and clap in the comments for my close and dear friend, as well as wonderful poet, Mo Santiago.
Hello, my name is Mo Santiago, and I will be reading a poem from my forthcoming collection, I Could Be a Body and Other Delusions. This poem is titled Eat the Rot Too. They're gonna drag your name across your body and look for mud. They will do anything to smear over, tarnish, and mold a crack in you. And when they talk to you, when they try to tell you what happened and they skew your story for their own, yell at the top of your lungs, little you, sing to them, to the whole crowd, and say it, say it. I was raped. I got to grow up. I am alive. What about all the other girls you keep forgetting about? I just want to say thank you to Awakenings for publishing this poem and my other poem in its original form, Red Balloons for My Bitches Covered in Blood. Both poems are from my forthcoming collection. And if you would like to pop in and see more of my work or just follow along, you can follow me on Instagram or at mosantiago.com. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Mo, for reading. Everyone, please join me in clapping or snapping in the chat for Mo. So please react in the chat for Mo. Thank you, Mo. Now, please help me welcome our next writer, Christina Jolie.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank my friends and family who inspire me with their big hearts, strength, and courage. The road to healing is not traveled alone. Thank you to Awakenings for the opportunity to share my story and my voice. This piece was inspired by an article I read about Crystal Kaiser, a teenager who faces life in prison for killing her abuser, a man who was also a child sex trafficker and serial child rapist. The article triggered memories of thoughts I had during my childhood abuse. While violence is not the answer, I believe it is important to recognize how survivors of trauma can be pushed to unimaginable limits just to survive. This is called fantasies, intentions, realities. I had fantasies of killing you, you, the second husband of my mother, you who extinguished the light in everyone around you so you would seem the brightest, you, a 35-year-old man who ruled your kingdom with fists and a gun. I had fantasies of killing you. Every time you were on top of me, inside of me, I imagined slipping a knife into your back. You tortured a 12-year-old girl into envisioning such a thing. I had fantasies of killing you after I broke free of your chains. There'd be nowhere to hide when you hunted me down. You drove a 15-year-old girl to consider such an action. I had fantasies of killing you. Even when you were locked in prison, you would soon be released, and I would be behind bars of fear. You forced a 16-year-old girl to exist in terror. I had fantasies of killing you when 2 years later I learned of your death. You taught me monsters do not die. You gave an 18-year-old girl enduring nightmares. I had fantasies of killing you because I believed this to be the only way I could survive. Only then would I know I was safe and free. Only then would I know you were truly gone. But I realized you would never really be gone. My fantasies created a state of vigilance. It is I who kept you alive in my mind, and the doubt of my self-worth, and the wasted time spent numbing body and soul. But now I understand this is the version of you I can control, that the way to freedom is through healing. I can remind myself you are just a man, not an immortal beast, that I am no longer a helpless child, that anger, shame, fear, and guilt are but whispers from the past. This is where I find my strength. Now I have fantasies that the damage you caused will finally give way to a life where light eclipses dark. I have fantasies that my body is not my enemy, that I do not have to live looking through a veil of trauma, that pain will not be my normal. Today, this 46-year-old woman has the truth. I have always been fighting my way toward being whole, content, awake, alive, able to love and be loved. No more fantasies. I have created a place of peace where you are banished. I've created a space to restore what was taken. I've created a reality of healing and hope. This is where I choose to exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, for reading. Everyone, please join me in clapping or snapping for Christina by reacting in the chat. We are keeping things moving tonight, so please know most writers have more published in the magazine than you will be hearing this evening. So please do check out their full pieces in issue 10. Now, please help me welcome our next writer, Sherry Lee.
The following poem is a companion piece to a series of carved ostrich eggshells of the same title, with each verse corresponding to one of the sculptures. Both pieces are about finding strength when you're feeling your most fragile and drilling forward when you feel most broken. The sculptures can be seen in issue 10, Intention for Change, which is truly a moving collection. You tell me I am less than you, a fraction, nothing better. I'm telling you I'm strong and true and holding it together. You say that I am just so, lashing out with words like bitch. I'll mend the wounds that you bestow without slipping a stitch. You try to break me down each day, hatching words and lies untrue. Real safety feels so far away when I commence believing you. I know now that it's not me who's broken and full of cracks. I'll make myself more than before, conquering setbacks. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry, for reading. Everyone, please join me in clapping or snapping for Sherry by reacting in the chat. And please do take a look in the magazine at the really stunning visual component of this piece. Thank you, Sherry. Our next writer also uses visual elements in her work, and both of her pieces have an important visual aspect. Tonight, Christine Fair will be reading the statement that accompanies a triptych, which is 3 images making a greater whole. The piece is entitled A Series of Self-Portraits, the Valkyrie, Athena, and Kali. I invite you to imagine these pieces and keep her voice in mind as you look at the magazine later. Now, please join me in welcoming Christine Fair.
I thank Awakenings for this opportunity and to help create a community of survivorship. I also apologize for my technical ineptitude. It shouldn't be this way, but it is. This is a triptych of 3 self-portraits, if you can imagine. The first image is a mosaic of a Valkyrie. In Norse mythology, the female Valkyrie served Odin, the god of war. The Valkyries went into the battlefield to select those among the slain who are worthy of a place in Valhalla. The mosaic is comprised of photos of a variety of persons whose cruelty, misogyny, and even outright assault during my childhood and young adulthood have had enduring impacts well into my middle age. Some of the photos of those are those who were simply complicit in these acts by doing nothing. This piece speaks to survivorship, but also the ways in which these experiences transform you. The second composite is Athena, the Greek god of war, goddess of war. This composite represents the resilience of survivorship at the expense of the serenity denied us. We become warriors forced to wage a war to protect ourselves that we did not start and that we did not want. The third is also a composite in the guise of Kali, a goddess in Hindu mythology. She slays demons, but she also offers divine protection and bestows moksha, or liberation, upon her devotees. I'm Christine Fair, and I'm a professor at Georgetown University. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for reading. Everyone, please join me in clapping or snapping for Christine by reacting in the chat. And please do take a look in the magazine. We are so honored to be able to include visual elements from several writers and artists in issue 10. Before we move on to our next writer, it is my pleasure to introduce another of our editing team, Emma Dempsey. Please join me in welcoming Emma.
As a journalist, I'm used to writing in a way that's very different from what we have here. But there is a certain element of craft to the kind of writing I do. My craft is research and facts and numbers. It's knowing which questions to ask to get the answers I need. It's clear, concise writing. I like journalism because it's logical, not emotional. So I was surprised by the emotional response I had to our creative writing submissions. Now, of course, it could be the nature of the subject, but I really think it's a testament to the power of writing. My writing is intentionally cold, removed, but the emotion, the vulnerability, and the strength conveyed through these pieces inspired me in a way journalistic writing never has. Where news coverage might focus on numbers and statistics, these works humanized the issue, reminding me there are real people behind those numbers and stats. I chose to pursue journalism because I believe journalism is about finding the truth, promoting justice, and providing a platform for people to speak out. But my experience with the Awakened Voices team has taught me a great deal about the power of creative writing and how it can reach those same ends. It has taught me that truth doesn't necessarily mean cold, hard facts. We can find truth in other ways too, through art and writing, in memoirs and fiction, poetry and prose. But the truth can be hard to hear sometimes, even harder to tell. Taylor Brazel tells us about a therapy session after her sexual assault. Everything she said and everything she couldn't say. And even though she couldn't say it all then, she's finding the strength to tell us now. So to Taylor and to everyone else who contributed to this publication, thank you. Thank you for finding the strength to share your truth. As for promoting justice, I think that goes hand in hand with this issue's theme, intention for change. Because we can't fight injustice if nothing changes. But what does change look like? I tend to think of it in broad, sweeping terms, nationwide movements demanding widespread reforms. And while that kind of change is important, making it happen can be daunting, especially if you feel like you're doing it on your own. Sources say change, like healing, can mean different things, and this issue reminds us we can also find victories in small changes. With each piece I read, I found my idea of change shifting. It was inspiring to see the different ways people interpreted and responded to our theme. Phil Goldstein demonstrates the power of our own stories and how we can change the narrative by telling them. Brandy Schmaling teaches us consent can be withdrawn, giving us and herself permission to change our minds. Amanda Held encourages us to reimagine our fairy tales. H.D. Weideman reminds us that for some, change means growth. C. Christine Fair shows us elections matter, judges matter. Change can be scary, no matter how small or large, but there's something comforting about knowing there's so much potential for change, whether it's personal, political, introspective, interpersonal, or something else. There's no single right way to change or make change, and in a way, that knowledge can be liberating. So again, thank you to our writers, and however you envision change, thank you for your commitment to it. As an editorial team, we worked hard to decide which voices we wanted to share with you, our readers, and the world. It wasn't an easy process, but it taught me a lot about healing, about the power of words, the power of telling your story, the power of community, the power of each of us as individuals. So lastly, I want to say thank you to Awakenings for providing a platform for these people to speak out, to share their truths, to demonstrate their commitment to change, and to add to the conversation around sexual violence and survivorship. Because we can't find the truth, we can't create change, we can't promote justice if people are forced to remain silent. Now I'm very excited to introduce our next writer, who I was lucky enough to get to interview about his work. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Phil Goldstein.
Right. Am I on? I think I am. Sorry about that technical snafu. My name is Phil Goldstein, and I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I'm so grateful to be a part of this issue of Awakened Voices and among such brave and inspiring artists. I want to thank the Awakening staff for putting this wonderful event together, even though it's virtual. This has been so great so far. The piece I'm reading was something I wrote at the conclusion of a 15-week group therapy experience I had last fall with 5 other men who were also survivors. It's called The Testaments, and it's in my upcoming book, How to Bury a Boy at Sea. I wrote the poem for them and for all of us, and I want any man who's listening to this who's been abused to know that it's okay to speak up. You're not alone. For more of my work, you can visit philagoldstein.com. Lastly, I want to thank my partner, Jenny. I love you so much. So this is The Testaments. Buried deep in the haunting of our bones lies soft and still the boy we once were and knew and feared for, in foreign beds and hollow, hungry houses. We sometimes wonder how he got out alive at all. In a hall of mirrors, in a tiny dressing room that extends out into infinity, he stares back with eyes that long to be believed, but there is no one but himself to knowingly catch his gaze. He tries on corduroy pants that will wind up twisted on the carpet like a doll's costume, the creases long ago transformed into stubborn wrinkles. No amount of ironing can ever hammer them fully out. We know, of course, that there can be a murder scene without blood. Those are the tricky cases, the ones that confound hard-boiled detectives for decades. They rot in the sun like forgotten meat. We know all of this. We are the connoisseurs of such a delicacy. We have felt it become an immutable part of our being, like a hernia scar or broken tibia that aches in October rainstorms. We have carried him through all the seasons of our misshapen youth and dilapidated manhood as he made our footfalls deeper in the mud of memory. But we are so much more than what we buried. We are the testaments to the fact that gates can rust and not break. Valleys can yield good earth following avalanches. Kisses can be reclaimed for ourselves. Hollowed out hearts can be refilled, remade, renewed.
Thank you, Phil, for reading. Everyone, please join me in clapping for Phil or snapping by reacting in the chat. Please do check out the interview with Phil on our Instagram, and you can find 3 poems by Phil on issue 10. Thank you, Phil. We are so glad to publish everyone's work. Now, please, everyone, help me welcome our next writer, who is reading It's Not Your Fault. Welcome, Michelle Boyd Waters.
I am dedicating this poem to Nicole. I listen as you sit on the side of the tub with a mirror in one hand and a makeup brush in your other, and I wonder what's going through your mind as you spread a layer of foundation across your face like the shield that we should have been when he first saw your freckled child face and decided then that he would make you his. Just a little contour and highlighter, sharpen your cheekbones and hide the reminders of your childhood that should have set you off limits from the man you trusted with your innocence. Now, with your grown-up face, our society judges you and claims you could not have been one of the innocents. I listen as you load your brush, brightest blinding colors, explaining proper application, techniques for long-term wearability, as you apply another layer of glitter to your rose gold eyelids, as if you're creating armor. And I wonder if you realize it's not your fault that a fault line runs through your soul. I listen as you carefully outline your mouth, explaining the importance of liner. And I try to read between the lines and wonder if you realize that what he did does not define you. What he did does not limit you, but that the borders you've traced protect your heart from bleeding, that his possession of you does not mean you're only valuable as a possession. I understand you know that, just like you know your own face when you look in the scarred mirror at the glittering mask you just painted. But I wonder, do you really know, deep down in your broken soul, where the mask can't touch, that the fissures you ripped into your very core, it's not your fault?
Thank you, Michelle, for that beautiful reading. Everyone, please join me in clapping for Michelle by reacting in the chat with comments. And now, very quickly moving, but please help me welcome our next writer who is reading an excerpt from Permission to Change Your Mind. Welcome to Brandy Schmeling.
I want to start by saying I'm incredibly honored to be among so many courageous people as we all bear witness to one another's stories. Thank you for allowing me to share part of mine. This piece is one of many I've written about my experiences with sexual abuse and assault. My hope with this one was to create a dialogue about consent, broaden our understanding of what it means for each of us, and begin to challenge the idea that anyone ever asked for it when they've been violated. The section of my piece that I'll be reading tonight is from the days after a negative sexual experience and the emotional complexities that followed. I proceeded to feel disgusted with myself for days after, without really understanding why. A close friend I had shared the experience with kept asking me if it was consensual. Of course it was. I invited him up. I gave him the condom. Why do you keep asking me that? I wondered, frustrated and defensive with the repetitive questioning. I noticed the following day multiple bruises all over my thighs, which ignited more intrusions of sensations and images and feelings of nausea. I spent time the following week talking with my therapist about the incident, annoyed with myself and my feelings. Why did this casual, consensual sex experience leave me feeling so dirty and disgusting? My therapist reflected back to me how I wanted to sleep with this man, invited him up, and then changed my mind. Yes, that's what happened. So what? She seemed a bit surprised. Oh, with a long, gentle, but overwhelming pause. You don't think you're allowed to change your mind? She was right. My belief was that since I had initially consented, invited him up, handed him the condom, that I somehow asked for this. The fact is, however, that I did change my mind. The other fact is, I did not consent to those bruises. It is one thing to consent to rough play in the bedroom. When you're continually asking for someone to be gentle and take it easy, and you end up with bruises, that is not consent. it is sexual assault, even if he does it with a smile on his face. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy, for reading. Everyone, please join me in clapping for Brandy in the chat. Thank you very much, Brandy. You can check out the full piece in our magazine. In the meantime, our next writer is reading the poem Survivor. Please help me welcome Desiree.
Hi, I'm Desiree. I'm a writer based in Los Angeles. This poem expresses where I am on this stage in my journey of healing. You can view my published work on Amazon. In fact, Parallel Redux is a horror novella I wrote about my assault in high school and how my character found her voice, as I have now found mine. Survivor, what did that mean? Double check the doors and windows. Stay inside after dark. Sleep with a knife under my pillow. What does it mean? Hike alone. Go out after midnight in whatever I want to wear. Smile and laugh in public. Dance with strangers. Flirt with the barista. Freedom. It means fucking freedom.
Thank you, Desiree, for reading. Everyone, please join me in clapping or snapping for Desiree in the chat. Thank you, Desiree. At Awaken Voices, we generally have an editorial team of 4, which includes our 2 interns, Emma and Gillian, who you heard from earlier, plus me and our next speaker, Megan Otto. You might also know Megan as the editor of our blog, The Nightingale, which has prompt-based submissions that are open all year round if you would like to submit. Please help me in welcoming the final person on our editorial team, Megan Otto.
Hello, everyone. So this isn't how we originally planned to have this event, but it is beautiful that so many of us could be here in attendance. I recently became a remote member of the Awakenings team. I'm hailing to you from Portland, Oregon, and I'm incredibly grateful I could be here to celebrate the magazine launch with you all amidst this worldwide turmoil we're all enduring. I have found it so encouraging that art and the internet allow us to connect in ways we couldn't and maybe wouldn't have otherwise. I'm grateful for the extra and unusual effort required for our connection tonight, and I'm grateful for our final results. We get to share space together, not literally, but via our time and attention, which are some of the greatest things we can share. The next authors who will be reading touch on the tension between the details of personal experience and the general community of shared experience. Akira Mattingly and Abigail Swoboda both think about small moments and root into sensations of touch. Dana Christie and Lisa M. Kendrick focus on the hardening that occurs over the passage of time, and Bianca Thompson puts her precision into rhyme and the structure of a sonnet. Overall, these authors will share what they choose to pay attention to, what details of experience and healing struck them. Thank you, each of you, for lending your time and attention. Authors, thank you for giving extra time and attention to your own work by reading and sharing it to honor it. Audience members, thank you too for lending your time and attention, and by extension, your compassion to everyone whose work you're listening to, appreciating, and learning from. I think this collective compassion that we have used to create this issue has turned into a kind of intention in itself to continue what we started here at Awakenings, to speak, to listen, and to create a narrative of truth as a community. Now, please help me welcome our next writer, Dana Christie, who is reading the poem October 28th, 2017 to July 28th, 2019. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you. This poem was inspired by the period of time after I was raped. During this time, I developed a chronic illness with a host of symptoms ranging from uncomfortable to debilitating. But for me, the most challenging physical manifestation of my trauma was the loss of my menstrual cycle. There's a very important visual component that accompanies my piece, which I encourage you to check out in the magazine. In sharing this piece, I want survivors to know that it's okay to have a healing journey that is not linear. It's okay to go through ups and downs as you process your trauma. It's okay to never feel fully healed or to create your own personal definition of what healing means for you. You don't owe anyone your recovery. I hope this piece will help survivors offer themselves the patience and compassion I wish I had given myself from the start, and empower them to claim their own authentic expression of true healing. 21 months, 639 days, bleeding yet bloodless. I am a gaping wound, torn open to barren marrow. I smile, I glow, I sparkle with the crackling flames that consume the dry branches of my bones. They look at the fire in my eyes and see joy, passion, zeal. They can't tell that I'm slowly turning to ash. My body has been invaded with a deadly pathogen, shame. Every cell now contains its own cold, hard pebble of self-loathing. I am diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. My body is attacking itself. I can't kill my rapist, so I kill my own cells instead. Eventually, I stop praying for blood. I stop praying for healing, for wisdom, for life. Instead, I start to swim. At first, I dive deep and hold my breath just a moment longer than my body wants. The burning in my lungs feels safe, a brush with death I can control. But as time passes, I begin to swim laps. The rhythm of my stroke and my breath is a lullaby. The inferno inside me starts to cool. Sometimes I even let myself float. 21 months pass, 639 days. I have been dreaming of water. One morning I wake up to a cool wetness between my legs. Is this really happening? My fingers come away dark and dripping. I cup the blood in my palms, a sacred offering. I am still alive. Tiny buds of possibility push up through the carpet of ash. I have burned to the ground, but my charred remains have fertilized new growth. Slowly, hesitantly, I turn my face towards the warmth of the sun.
Thank you, Dana, for reading and sharing with us. Everyone, please join me in clapping or snapping for Dana by reacting in the chat. And please do check out the visual component of this poem. Thank you, Dana. We are moving towards the last part of our event with just 3 writers left. Hopefully everyone is stretching and still with us without too many technology hiccups. Now, please help me welcome our next writer, Akira Mattingly.
Hello, my name is Akira Mattingly and I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I want to thank everybody ahead of time for listening. This poem is called A Bath. Mosaics cling to the wall like teeth, crooked and loose in a jaw. The dying bulb flickers, drenches air in a foul, jaundiced glow. The faucet spits cacophonies, litters glass shards over her body. She lies still, lets bone protrude out from skin, her spine frigid against porcelain. She has come here to entomb the girl who lingers, pressed between those bedsheets like dried flowers, who still feels the crawl of greedy fingertips, the bite of nails burrowing, the blood oozing between legs, slick yet sticky like syrup, who can't forget hands fashioned around neck and wrists like nooses. She scrubs at her skin, lets it redden. She scrubs, lets it go raw, then peels, floats away in graceful pirouettes. Water pools around her hips. It blushes, ripens like cherries. She scrubs. Rosebuds bloom along the surface, envelops her in crudely shaped petals. Ribbons of tendons unravel in delicate swirls to expose the bone, all that remains untouched.
Thank you, Akira, for reading. Everyone, please show your appreciation for Akira by reacting in the chat. Thank you again, Akira. Now, please help me welcome our second to last writer for this evening, Lisa M. Kendrick.
I could never make peace with fallacy. I could not cover for him my whole life, even though I had buried his secret, an angry grit of sand I had polished until the discomfort became bearable. But that pearl swelled, dark and iridescent, a constant reminder of ugliness, my being yearning for its release until, no matter the sheen of its coating, I ejected the malignants I had been forced to succor. For that, I was deemed the enemy who had dared purge herself of injustice. I became the black sheep, the whore who shattered implicit silence. I was labeled a pariah because it would have been just fine with them if I had kept his secret, carried the night a family member pillaged my innocence, harboring the betrayal I had wrestled with my entire life. That pearl of wisdom, as dark as the crime, the color I made into my mantle the day I spoke the truth, the day my family disowned me for the crime of having been a child who didn't want to rock the boat, then becoming an adult who released a tsunami. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for reading. Everyone, please join me in clapping or snapping for Lisa by reacting in the chat. We now have our final reader of this evening, though certainly not our final writer in the magazine. Before we hear from our final writer, I just want to say thank you to all writers who are here tonight, our writers who did not read tonight, but will be reading in July, and our writers who are choosing not to read in a public space. Now, our final writer this evening will be reading the poem, Grocery Store Tenderness. Please help me welcome Abigail Swoboda.
I check an invisible watch before I thrust my hands into the vat of red beans, stationed between aisles 6 and 7, bridging the gap between the cans of corn and the boxes of breakfast cereal. I relish the sensation of 1,000 tiny touches. I stir gently, and their whispered words reach my ears in a flurry. I won't hurt you. I won't hurt you. I won't hurt you. They bracelet my forearms, bright like blood. Canned Muzak crackles through the speakers above us and floats down like a hymn. I tilt my head back, searching nose pointed toward the fluorescent sun. This is the oldest brightness I know. A forgotten shopping list haunts my back pocket. When I leave, I walk leaned against the wind, even though there is no wind. I'd like to thank Awakenings for providing space for me to share my story in a way that feels like it belongs to me, and for opening me up to the possibility of having conversations that for a long time I was too afraid to approach. Unlike any other, this publication has been marked both by vulnerability and a sense of uncovered strength. For those interested, more of my work can be found on my website, which is just my name, firstandlast.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Everyone, please clap or snap for Abigail. Thank you. Now, if we were all in the same space, we would have all the writers come forward for a final thank you. So tonight, we are going to have all the writers' videos come forward, and writers, please take a virtual bow or wave. To all our guests, please join me in thanking and celebrating all of our writers, our reviewing team who spent months reading all of the submissions, the editorial team, Megan, Gillian, and Emma, and the staff at Awakenings. Special thanks to our advocate tonight, McKenna Rogan, to Claire Stark. A special thank you to Abby Mrose, who is the technology genius behind the scenes tonight, to Jimin Kim, who designed the layout of the magazine, and thanks to all of our friends at CanWin. And a thank you to all of you audience members for joining us tonight for the launch of issue 10, Intention for Change. A quick final few words. You'll receive an automated follow-up email tomorrow that includes a link to give your feedback. For virtual events are new to us, so we would love to hear your feedback. And while the magazine is absolutely free to both read and download, if you would like to support Awakenings, please consider making a donation on our website. Finally, before you all go, a plug for 2 events. We will be premiering a special closing video on our YouTube channel next Friday to celebrate the closing of our gallery exhibit. And as I mentioned back at the beginning of tonight, we will be having another reading night in July, which will feature the special section of our magazine. This section was curated by guest editor Dr. Elizabeth Song through Can Win. We are looking forward to sharing more about our collaboration with them soon. In the meantime, we are placing a direct link to the whole magazine in the chat. That is all, friends. Thanks again for being with us tonight, and please go and read everyone's work, and we wish you all a good and well evening.
Rainy summer, all that you can deliver, I want it bad. You're like good water pressure in a cold, rainy summer.